Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mr. Sitter podcast with moi, yours truly, Anthony Locascio. How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I am going to start today's episode by addressing the very obvious giant black and white elephant in the room. As you may have noticed, if you are watching, I am wearing my Juve jersey in solidarity. For those of you that don't know what's going on, allow me to digress into a little tale of yet another phone conversation between Sam Locascio and Anthony Locascio. A couple of days ago, my dad rings me and asks me if I saw that Inter lost to Empoli a couple of days ago in Serie A at home 1-0, which is a great result for me, for my family, for life in general when Inter lose, but I didn't care. I also didn't care that Juve played quite well in certain spells against a monstrously in form Atalanta in their amazing 3-3 draw the other day. I don't care that Milan lost this morning 4-0 to Lazio. I don't care about Serie A at all. And I know that I'm not alone because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I speak to a lot of people on the internet about Serie A. And that's more or less because the verdict that was handed down last week, giving Juventus a 15-point deficit in this current Serie A ladder, has really killed everything for us. It's killed the league. And yes, I should preface the rant that I'm about to go on, which I hope will be quite informative for anybody that doesn't know or the ins and outs of what's going on. I will preface it by saying I cannot be unbiased in this. So, there's sue me. That's what that you knew that was going to happen. A few people have asked specifically for my opinion on this. Okay, so Juve were being investigated. Juve are being investigated for a number of things at the moment by a number of governing bodies. Sporting fraud, false accounting, a bunch of different things. And I'll start by chucking it out there that there's been this big conspiracy that Juve are being singled out, and as much as that's frustrating for us fans, the reason why Juve are being specifically singled out is because in amongst the top table of Italian teams, Juventus are the only publicly traded company, which means that any kind of shady dealings that they do is seen as a market tamperer, and that's bad, for the entire stock exchange. So the scrutinizing of Juve and their activity is higher and more, considered than any other club. So that's just that's just there. Now that's not to say that other clubs won't get investigated after this, but we'll get to that in a sec. So basically, Juve and a bunch of other clubs were acquitted of certain sporting fraud in late last year, but that investigation was reopened due to new evidence which has come as a result of the Prisma investigation, which is a criminal investigation into Juventus's dealings, as opposed to just a football investigation, which is what this verdict has come as a result of, and it's basically that Juve knowingly, and that's a key thing here, knowingly and kind of flagrantly tried to game the system by inflating the transfer values of certain players going in and out. And as a result, they've been docked 15 points, even though the prosecutor only asked for 9, but they've been docked 15 points mid-season for some reason. They don't start next season with 50. For some reason, this particular championship it's been ruined. I don't give a fuck what you think or who you support. I've heard Inter supporters say that it's ruined, because to Juve were on a great run. Yes, we got absolutely flogged by Napoli, but Juventus is still a very significant player in this championship, and effectively their games they're not dead rubbers, but they mean so much more less now. So they've done this mid-season, and it seems like a rather arbitrary and unexplained punishment to dock 15 points. In addition, the following names have been banned from Italian football, at least for the time being: Andrea Agnelli, Pavel Nedved, Federico Cherubini, Maurizio Arrivabene, all these people that were members of the Juventus kind of management staff as of a few months ago before they resigned. And interestingly, Fabio Paratici, who is the sporting director at Tottenham Hotspur now. Obviously, he doesn't give a fuck because he's not banned from participating in the Premier League, but there could be further ramifications if UEFA get involved, which it looks like they might. The intent to deceive is, of course, the big thing here. I got a distinction in criminal law. This is in my 3.5 out of 5 years of a law degree that I have, which will not be spoken about on this podcast. But I did get a distinction for criminal law, and I will have tattooed on my brain forever that in order for criminality to be established in legal proceedings, mens rea and actus reus are the two key components, and mens rea is, of course, Latin for intent. And we assume that it's wiretaps because, you know, people have been wiretapping Juve since the doping scandal of the 90s, Calciopoli in the 2000s, and now this one. And there's a lot of evidence of like bragging, like Fabio Paratici on the phone bragging about how he was going to sign Ronaldo, shit like that. And I think that that stupidity that has lent to the prosecution's determination that there's been a real want to fuck the system here. And of course, the reason why they've come down so hard on Juve in their estimation is that there's a trickle down effect, and that it's basically skewed the competition totally, because every team made losses in COVID. One of the other investigations that is happening in and around Juve, which could potentially be way more serious than this, is that a lot of players were paid off the books during COVID, which is a big no-no, especially for a publicly traded company, in case anybody doesn't know about accounting. But anyway, when they did that, that COVID affected every single Italian team, and as a result, other teams that were so-called fair, they had to sell their best players, and that's how they had to make up the shortfall, whereas Juve falsified capital gains in order to keep their players, buy new players, and then have a kind of unfair advantage over the league. Granted, this is a period wherein Juve have stopped being perennial champions in Italy. Maurizio Sarri was the last coach to win. That was during COVID. That was the COVID interrupted season, but thereafter we've not won anything. So I don't know how you can really quantify that, but whatever. What would you expect me to think about this situation? So to the falsified capital gains thing, this is something that I've spoken about on the podcast a few times, but here it is if you need it again. This is, first of all, something that a lot of clubs do, and I'll get to that in a second. But the idea is that Juve have inflated the values of outgoing players, especially homegrown players, in order to grow what's called the plusvalenza, which basically means the capital gains, and these assets appear as a giant profit on the balance sheets. So, for example, you sell Manuel Portanova to Genoa. Portanova under investigation for sexual assault. Neither here nor there. Not really involved here, but just a bit of trivia for you guys. And he's not a great player, but they agree that it's going to be 6-7 mil when he's probably only worth 2 mil. And then favors are done for Genoa so that they don't have to pay that money. It's there's no actual money is being exchanged here. It's just what appears on the books. The big one is, of course, the famous one is, of course, the Miralem Pjanic Artur deal, which, even though it's the biggest and most famous one, it's probably one of the most just ones in as far as the numbers. That's excluding the fact that Artur was a total fucking flop at Juve and a player nowhere near worth 72 million, which was what was recorded. And there's the Pellegrini, Spinazzola, Danilo, Cancelo swaps, which were high-profile ones as well. But the gist is that this is something that Juve have been doing for a while. But other clubs have been doing it for a long, long time as well. And I'll name you a couple of big examples from within Italy just off the top of my head. The really big one, which is going to come down quite hard if other clubs are going to be investigated, is Victor Osimhen from Lille to Napoli. Officially it was like 75 mil, but Napoli ended up paying like just under 50 mil. And then the shortfall was made up with 3 really bad, really average youth academy players who are all like either not playing or playing in the 4th division of Italy right now, and Karnetsis, who was the Greek goalkeeper for a little while, who played like 2 games for Lille. So that's like a clear example of that. The Bastoni deal from Atalanta to Inter is a big one as well. Some really shitty youth players were sent over for like 7 mil a pop. And then, of course, the Caldara-Bonucci swap deal between Milan and Juve from like 2016, if I'm recalling correctly, was another one that was like both players were highly inflated, especially when you know that Bonucci at least had no more value to amortize. So every single club is doing it, even at the bottom levels. Like, this is just simple kind of standard practice accounting in Italy, and I dare say beyond, because that's the takeaway from this for me. How can you prove it? A footballer inherently is a subjective asset in value. Yes, there are ways to quantify, like goals, stats, championships won, etc. These are real obvious wayfarers of value for players, but you can't prove it. Do you know what I mean? You can't. There's no way to actually quantify it. So to come down so stringently and so hard on one club seems like a total kind of knee-jerk, we got to do something here to make a statement reaction. And like, it's not fair. And you are going to appeal this, but I'll tell you right now, the point deduction is not going to be overturned in this season at all. And I don't know how it could ever, like, even if Juve, so the acquittal process will take a long time. From what I understand, Juve are taking it to a higher court than the Court of Arbitration, which handed down this verdict. But the only thing that court can do, that above court can do, is say that Juve were unjustly treated in this verdict. They can't actually repeal the verdict. All they can do is send it back to the Court of Arbitration for it to be retried. So this is going to take a really, really long time. And this campionato, this league season is fucked. And I don't know how Juve will be compensated if this does get reversed at some point. I don't know how this is going to affect Juve moving forward, because things could get worse. The sporting fraud stuff, the payments not under the table, the payments off the books, under the table, however you want to classify it. Punishment could be worse. I don't think they'll get relegated, because this isn't quite what Calciopoli was, which, just for a refresher, Calciopoli was the match fixing scandal, of which Juve were done for doing what everybody in the league was doing, and maintaining close relationships with the Referees Association, including Inter, who were like the whistleblowers, who it came out that they were much bigger perpetrators than anybody else, but the statute of limitations had expired by then, so they never got prosecuted, even though Juve got major fines, all the players left, and they were demoted to Serie B. This isn't quite on that level, so I don't think Juve will get relegated, but who knows what's going to happen. At the very least, I don't think they will be in Champions League, which means we could be losing a whole bunch of our players, and we don't know what's going to happen. And then if UEFA do get involved, UEFA are going to be in no mood to go easy on Juve, because, of course, Andrea Agnelli was one of the main perpetrators of the Super League, so they're gonna fuck us if they get the opportunity to. It's gonna take a long time for this to be sorted, and I'm personally not looking forward to watching it all go down. But whatever. I think this sets a really dangerous precedent, because, like I said, it's impossible to actually qualify. Like the agreement between a vendor and a buyer in any situation is that's tantamount to what the deal is. You know what I mean? Like if party A and party B agree to swap something for something, the value is determined by those two parties, no one else. So it's a bit difficult to see the validity of all this. But yeah, we'll see, because any club that made a deal with Juve in those circumstances should be under investigation too. And if I'm not mistaken, Roma for the Spinazzola case, Manchester City for the Cancelo case, Barcelona for the Pjanic case. These are three other publicly traded companies. If I'm not I could be wrong about Roma, but I'm almost certain that Manchester City and Barcelona would be. So if Juve is getting fucked, then we need to look at these other clubs too. So that's the long and short of it. In case I figure that's the thing that people would want me to talk about. I'm sorry if that wasn't particularly funny. If that's what we're here for, if we're here for the lols, I don't find the situation very funny at all. But I will love my club forever. I'm wearing the jersey in solidarity in case anybody's curious. I'm gonna have ADP here with me forever. So fino alla fine, let's hope that everything, Juve. Well, I was 15 years old when Calciopoli happened. That would be like the prime time for me to jump ship. I didn't. I supported Juve, and the Phoenix rose again and was the most successful club in recent history in the top 5 leagues, except for Bayern Munich, really, in terms of just like destroying the league and winning it year after year, and that was after that downturn. So it'll happen again. I can see the new management getting the shits with Max Allegri, and sending him packing because he's just not developing the players that we do have there. Antonio Conte is not going to be signing a new deal with Spurs. I can see him coming back, and hopefully maybe they'll sell Vlahovic, maybe they'll sell one or two players. I feel so bad for Paul Pogba because he's decided to come back to Juve and he hasn't even played a game, and he's watching the club absolutely fall apart. That will rise again. Juve are the Thanos of Italy. We are inevitable. Let's get on to other stuff because the Juve game was really, really good. Inter lost. I'm a bit unenthused by Serie A, so I'm not going to chat about that. Let's talk about Arsenal United. Absolutely awesome game. A throwback to like the mid 2000s when these two teams were like the top of the league. This is still theoretical that they are the top of the league, but Manchester United's rise as title contenders is a little bit overblown. I don't think that they are in the title race, but for them to be third is great given what they've been doing, and there's heaps to build on. Rashford's goal was fantastic, and the way that guy's playing at the moment is fantastic. Proper indictment of how, not shit, but just how not Manchester United level Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was. The fact that he has players like Rashford doing terrible for the last few seasons, Wan-Bissaka, Dalot, all these guys that, even like Scott McTominay was pretty good against Arsenal. These guys were good under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to not so good under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. In the case of Rashford, you thought Rashford was just done, but he's not. He's the best player at Manchester United at the moment, and great. It's great to see. So just an indictment of the fact that Erik ten Hag is so much better than anything that they had there, but also the backroom staff hasn't changed there. So the second things get choppy for Erik ten Hag, we might see Manchester United in trouble again. I like to hope that he's a good enough manager to see it through for the long haul, but yeah, his Ajax declined and he's never had experience at this level before. I hope he swims because I really like him, but we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, Saka's goals was fucking amazing. Saka's been playing amazing. Him and Rashford racially abused after missing penalties for England in the Euro final. Great to see them kicking ass and doing great. So fuck racism, basically. It was a really fun game to watch, and I'm glad Arsenal won because they keep on churning. Haaland scores a hat-trick against Wolves. They win 3-0. Wolves absolutely fucked. This is his 4th hat-trick since joining Manchester City. He only scored 2 hat-tricks in the 2 years that he was in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund. So who's the real Farmers League is the joke that's on the internet. The reality is that he's playing in a team that creates much, much more opportunity for him, obviously. Okay, so you may have seen, I don't know what podcast it was on. This is like pretty well-established football podcast. There's like a bunch of fucking pommy guys talking about football. And there's this one guy who at the start of the season, or I think might have been just after the Community Shield, came out and he was like, oh, Haaland's not going to be good in the Premier League. He's not going to score more than 13 goals and he's not going to be good. It went viral, this clip, like after the fact, because this is like the worst fucking take that anybody could have had. And that guy came back out and said, oh, well, I think I was still right, because even though Haaland has already beaten the record for the amount of goals scored last season, he's made Manchester City worse, because overall the team has scored the same amount of goals. They've just been redistributed to him. They've conceded more. They are doing worse in the league. He's made Manchester City a worse club, worse team. Fuck off. And I was so upset at this take. Not because I like Man City. I like Haaland, but I don't like bullshit. I went and checked out who this guy was, and the guy's name is Rory Jennings. He's actually a UK actor who appeared in Doctor Who as one of the villains at some point. Like, he's actually quite well known on the UK acting scene. So, like, what the fuck are you talking about football, bro? Leave it to the comedians. That's what we're here for. No, but seriously, it's just an absolutely dog shit take, and I'll tell you why, for a couple of reasons. First of all, Manchester City are second in the league still. They are 5 points behind Arsenal, even though Arsenal have a game in hand, and they still have to play Arsenal twice, and they're playing Arsenal in the League Cup this weekend. They could still win the league. Do you understand? Manchester, I don't want them to, and I don't actually see it happening, but they still could win the league. So shut the fuck up. They could win cups, and they could win the Champions League. In fact, the reason why Pep Guardiola brought in Haaland, supposedly, purportedly, is because he wanted to have that game breaker in those moments in the Champions League, like when they're leading against Real Madrid and they let it slip, or they just can't break down another team. They wanted to have that game breaker, and they have that now. Consider a few things. This is a machine that possibly the best Premier League performance ever in the league last season. Did very, very well in the Champions League. They were the best team in the world last season. To fundamentally change the way that team plays in order to accommodate this guy takes so like balls, man. Takes balls, especially from somebody like Pep Guardiola, who has such an entrenched philosophy, and he has shown himself to be tactically resilient, to be tactically flexible, to the point of completely changing the way Man City play. They play way more direct because they have this new bazooka at the front of their helm. Jurgen Klopp hasn't changed. That's why Liverpool ain't so good anymore. Antonio Conte hasn't changed, which is why he is where he is. Mourinho, like, name your big name manager, and I'll tell you why they are stuck in their ways. Pep continues to remold the formula and what he puts out there as a team, and the fact that they are still second, the fact that they are still, in my estimation, a favorite for the Champions League, and they are they're terrifying. They're terrifying with Haaland. Just makes this Rory Jennings bullshit fucking terrible take. So I'm sorry. And like, they're this good this season. Erling Haaland's fucking 22. They're this good this season. Just imagine what's going to happen next. So don't like that. What was a good take, though, was me saying that Miguel Almiron was going to fall off the hill after the World Cup. He has scored only one goal since the World Cup. They drew against Crystal Palace, Newcastle, that is, and they are they're going to come fourth. Okay, that's the best that they're going to come up with this season. They're not title contenders, and their goals seem to have dried up. They've had a lot of draws. They're doing so much better than they should have done this season. Let's just call it at that. Unless, of course, they bring in like 2 or 3 really expensive players, which is, it's surprising that it's almost the end of January and Newcastle haven't made any blockbuster signings. There haven't really been any but like, okay, we had Cody Gakpo coming in, Mikhailo. Okay, Chelsea are just taking Chelsea away. Man, it just seems like there aren't that many big name signings at like Leandro Trossard to Arsenal. I think is going to be a low key really good signing. But yeah, it's been a weird transfer window. So it'd be interesting to see how the next few days shake up. Harry Kane re-signed with Tottenham in the next few days. Apparently, that was a terrible way to word it. Harry Kane may re-sign with, like, it looks like he's going to re-sign with Tottenham and probably see out his career there, which it seems fucking terrible because the guy's going to have like one silver medal from the Euros and one bronze. No, you didn't even get a medal for the semi-finals of the World Cup to his name as the entirety of his trophy cabinet. Why, man? Antonio Conte's leaving. Antonio Conte's had enough. I can definitely see him coming back to Juve at the end of this season. And like, why are you doing it, man? You could go anywhere. Harry Kane. So sorry. He scored the goal that put them past Fulham yesterday. Spurs' kit is fucking atrocious. It looks like a scuba suit. It's like the color scheme's fucking horrible. It's ass. Hate that. And yeah, Spurs are just going to continue to Spurs. I'll come 5th or 6th. I hope that Brighton pip them because they're my fucking boys now. Brighton are my boys. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Brighton are my boys. Frank Lampard sacked as Everton manager in the wake of his team losing to West Ham. I think Frank Lampard is a really bad manager. I think he did okay at Derby. He came in at Chelsea when there was the big ban, like they couldn't sign any players, and he pulled players like Reece James and Tammy Abraham and Mason Mount to the forefront, which was seen as like an amazing job that he did. And then he kind of fell off the wagon, and then with basically the same team, Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League. He's bad at Everton. The team they play the worst football in the league, and I don't think they have anywhere approaching the worst squad in the league. I think Frank Lampard's abilities in light of looking at Steven Gerrard, who was like they were neck and neck. Like I cannot say who was a better player in the 2000s. I loved both of them, even though I was a Chelsea supporter. But Frank Lampard winning the league undefeated with Rangers definitely inflated his value as a manager. He got the Aston Villa job. He wasn't very good at Aston Villa. He's gone now and he's out of a job. Even though, was it the Poland national team that were looking at him? Don't know. Regardless, I think Gerrard still has potential. And because of that, I guess you're like looking at Lampard in the similar parallel. Lampard, for younger listeners, man, like, I cannot tell you how good he was as a player. When Ronaldinho won the Ballon d'Or, the guy came second was a guy called Thierry Henry. You might not know him. And then the third guy was Frank Lampard. Like, he was a top table player. And I think because of that, he gets given opportunities where he probably doesn't deserve them because I don't think that he's a really good coach. I can see him coming as like the England replacement for Gareth Southgate, and maybe that's where he slots in. But his teams just can't fucking defend and they can't fucking attack. He's not a Premier League manager, and I don't think that he will have another job in the Premier League ever again, unless something drastic happens. But we'll see. We'll see. That name value really carries a lot of weight. Brighton drew with Leicester, which is something that not a lot of teams do. Leicester have been pretty shit this season, but Brighton, my boys. I just want to talk about Mitoma. I just want to talk about Kaoru Mitoma, Dr. Dribbling, the guy who wrote his thesis. He's honestly one of the best players in the Premier League out of fucking nowhere. His goal was alla Del Piero. Alessandro Del Piero was invited as a collaborator on Instagram to this post where Mitoma's goal against, like, it was absolutely gorgeous, turns the Leicester defender inside out and then across the goal, and then like just a curler in the top right hand corner a la Del Piero. And Del Piero actually accepted, like, it's on Del Piero's page. Mitoma's goal is on Del Piero's Instagram page. Go and check it out. And then he did this incredible attacking move to set up Solly March, who just like skied the ball and then looked at Solly March like, come on, bro, what are you doing? What a fucking player. I hope he stays at Brighton, because Brighton fucking the boys. Me, and Mitoma and Alexis McAllister and just all of them and Roberto De Zerbi, they're my fucking team. Someone buy me a Brighton jersey. Yeah. Loved it. That's my Premier League wrap. Nothing else real fun happened on the. There's one thing that I was watching a little bit of Southampton Aston Villa, and I noticed that there was a Southampton goal that was disallowed, James Ward-Prowse, and then Aston Villa ended up going on to win. I like Unai Emery so much, so I'm rooting for Villa at the moment. But I just like the way the narrative and the headlines. I don't know if you guys do this. This is something that might foster discussion in the comments. I don't know if you watch football and the narrative in your head as to the ramifications of the game and the goals and any moment to moment kind of evolves. I see the headlines in my head when things I see when Southampton scored. I saw this Southampton at the start of the season I thought were doomed. They brought in this guy Nathan Jones, who has been an amazing coach at championship level, and he's done a really, really good job with a really, really young squad. What Southampton did in the transfer window was crazy. Just buy young players, sell their older players, and they just kind of hope for the best. But they're good. And when they scored that goal, I thought, oh, this is the narrative. The narrative is going to be about how good they are. They end up losing at home to Aston Villa, and then that narrative changes. So football is such a momentary prison of thought, I find. I don't really have a place to land this point. Just something I thought I would bring up. Maybe you guys don't think about football like that. Maybe you guys are true, I don't actually think I'm a true traditional sports fan. I think a lot of that's why I don't like any other sport. I like the legend. I like the narrative. I like the stories around the sport, as opposed to the momentary excitement. That maybe that says a lot more about me than anything. But that's why I like it. So you know what? Drop a comment about whether or not that's how you feel about sport. I got to talk to more people about sport instead of just talking to this camera here and these two guys. Let's chat about continental competition real quickly because some funny stuff happened before we crack into our lasagna and our sitter of the week. Carlo Ancelotti, after Real Madrid's game, was asked for the chewing gum. The Real Madrid supporter wanted to have his chewing gum, and Carlo gave him the chewing gum, which is the most Carlo Ancelotti thing. He is everybody's dad, and in his mind, he didn't think for a second, this is disgusting. This is going to jeopardize this person's hygiene. He was like, "You want my gum? Of course you can have my gum." Hala Madrid. Legend Ancelotti. Kylian Mbappe scores 5 goals in the Coupe de la Ligue against Pays de Cassel. That's how good my French is, guys. Kicked ass just then. And you just wonder he's a cheat code is what the Instagram headlines say. He's not a cheat code. He's a player that is too good to be playing in France. Reports came out last week that Real Madrid are literally the only club that financially can get him out of PSG. And why would they? They're fine without him. Let Mbappe rot. He made his decision. Let's see what happens with him. Actually, do you care? I don't care. I don't care what happens to PSG at all. Couldn't give a fuck. They played a friendly against Al Nassr last week. Messi against Ronaldo, possibly the last time. Didn't even watch the highlights. Couldn't give a fuck. This ain't 2012 anymore. The big Messi Ronaldo era, it's over. You got to move on. I am as prone to football nostalgia as the next guy, but when it comes to enjoyment of the status quo, man, I'll give me fucking Erling Haaland and give me Arsenal, actually. Give me Arsenal right now over Messi and Ronaldo. They're way more intriguing to me. So, speaking of though, Messi apparently wants to leave. He was dead set on extending with PSG beyond this season, but after winning the World Cup, he's done, and cool. Go somewhere else, bro. Do whatever you fucking want to do. Messi, he deserves it. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And that's about as much as I'm going to say about that. And finally, you guys may have... Did I speak about it during the World Cup? I don't know. The World Cup is just such a giant blur to me that I can't remember what we did and didn't speak about. But then there's Cum Dog. Cummins, who plays for Central Coast Mariners. Another Scot turned Aussie. Cum Dog. That's what I know him as. That's what we call him. Cum Dog. So Cum Dog was apparently snubbed by Olivier Giroud at the end of the Australia-France game, and Cum Dog made a big song and dance about it. It has finally been resolved. Giroud was seen posing with the signed Central Coast Mariners jersey from Cum Dog, and then of course Cum Dog gets the signed Milan jersey from Olivier Giroud. So all's well that ends well for Cum Dog. And I mean, look at Giroud. Look at how handsome that guy is. Look at how beautiful he is, and how just wonderful a career he's had. Who's the real Cum Dog? I'll leave you on that thought. That's been our recap of everything. I know that it's gone for a little while. I'll make the next two segments short, but I really wanted to extrapolate on the Juve situation because, like, that's the shit I really know about, guys. That's the stuff that's in my head. So your lasagna for the week is Emmanuel Adebayor celebrating against Arsenal months after joining Manchester City from them by running the length of the pitch, doing a knee slide, and then standing like Jesus in front of the Arsenal supporters while being pelted with fucking anything that the Arsenal supporters could find. There's a big story behind this that a lot of people may not know, but when it happened, it was hilarious. Mostly because Emmanuel Adebayor is so lanky, so tall. Him running, sprinting the full length of the pitch after scoring to get there was just hilarious. Like, it looked like the stampede. It's so funny, especially with everyone like trying to catch up to him. Adebayor, for anybody that doesn't know, was in the late 2000s. He was like the skillful big man. It was him and Peter Crouch that were in really good positions as like super duper tall strikers. He was a better player than Peter Crouch in my estimation. I really liked Emmanuel Adebayor. Played for Arsenal, played for Manchester City. Obviously, he was kind of involved in the first big poaching session that Manchester City did throughout the Premier League. I think they got Clichy at the same time. They ended up taking Nasri as well. They took a lot of players from Arsenal. Sanya as well. This was in 2009. He 25 million pounds, which was pretty big for that time. He moved to Manchester City from Arsenal. He was at one time an African Player of the Year. The story goes that he had been just like pelted with racial abuse and just general abuse from the Arsenal supporters, and he himself was like thinking, I didn't want to leave Arsenal. Arsene Wenger sanctioned the sale, and he said, fuck it, I'll go. So for him, it was like a real act of defiance to do that celebration. And he's like, man, I made a family decision. And the abuse that if anybody came to your job, and abused me the way that people abuse me, like there'd be riots, you know, there'd be the most crazy shit if anybody came to someone's job to abuse them that way. City ended up winning 4-2. This is like around the time that Arsenal's downfall would begin and City would rise. Like, this is almost like a passing of the torch of the two really, really big clubs. And now, ironically, they are neck and neck for this title that we have this season. The FA fined Adebayor. Isn't that just the ultimate indictment of just how we perceive and how we monitor and how we and how we police racism in football and in life? It's like he got fined by the FA for doing this provocative celebration, but nothing was done to find the perpetrators of the throwing shit at him, the hurling of racial abuse, which, like, it wasn't like this is the first time that he had been treated this way. So this isn't a hearkening back to an era where things were like that. This is still happening, guys. So, like, the Tottenham guy who last week who kicked Aaron Ramsdale, it wasn't racially motivated, but I don't know. Again, maybe it's because of the way I perceive football, the way I like to consume it. Like it's the narrative for me. It's the beauty of this organic, instinctive development of the story, which is not scripted. It's not written by somebody else. It's a gladiatorial kind of war simulation, and anything can happen in it. And I love to watch football to observe that narrative unfold. I do not claim the bulk of my identity from being a Juve supporter, for example. Yes, I have a tattoo of Juve, but you know why I have a tattoo of Juve? Because I was 22 and I wanted a tattoo, and that was the most meaningful thing to me when I was 22. Nothing means anything to 22-year-old Australian men. It would have been this or the logo from the Ivy Pool. Okay, so that's not to say that I don't love my club and that I don't love my tattoo and that what's happening right now isn't killing me. But I wouldn't racially abuse somebody. I wouldn't kick I wouldn't kick Andre Onana, the Inter goalkeeper, if he was before me. You know, like this kind of fanaticism it's criminal and it's disgusting and it's the woke left internet craziness on a sporting level. You know, it's people that are sad and angry and disgruntled within their own lives, needing an outlet to vent that frustration, needing somebody to blame for their own shortcomings. And that's the biggest problem with the Western world, at least. You know, it's not as bad as world hunger, but it's a real issue. They said to him, your mother is a whore and your father washes elephants. Imagine your father washes elephant. Imagine saying that to somebody in any context. I've been copping abuse on TikTok for enough time now that I'm taking it as a compliment to the degree to which my videos are doing well. You guys should follow me on TikTok, by the way, if you haven't. But I'm just understanding that when there is that shield, when there is that mime glass barrier of, well, this isn't real. This is the internet. This is me abusing this person. There's not a real person behind here. There's not a real person across the threshold of like the barriers on the side of the pitch. There's not real people there. There's not real people with real hearts and souls and sensitivities and struggles. Like, what don't you get that there are real people? And fuck, I wanted this to be a funny little thing, and I've turned it into another macabre, somber fucking like tale here. I'm sorry. Ignore me. Watch the Adebayor celebration, because when you understand that it's in defiance of Arsenal supporters being cunts, watching him just fucking like languidly running is so funny, and like he doesn't even flinch when they chuck shit at him. Adebayor, legend, and Godspeed to him. Your sitter of the week is from a Rangers player from a game in the 1990s versus Celtic. Rangers are up 1-0 in the Old Firm derby, and they get a 2-on-1 counter-attack, and Peter Van Vossen, I think it's Peter, I've just got Van Vossen written down here. Apologies to I'm sure I've got a couple of like 40 to 50-year-old football fans that listen to this podcast. I'm sorry if I fucked that up. Should have done more research. My bad. He gets, like, it's a FIFA goal. He gets the ball squared to him across the goalkeeper, open goal, first time over the bar. It's lovely. It's brilliant. It's not like, yeah, it's you check it out. It's on the YouTube. I should start like overlaying the podcast with it, but it fucking takes a long time to edit this shit, and I don't have that much time, guys, because I do this for free. So sue me. Go on. You can look it up. It's this is more of a infographic. This is more of a public service announcement that this is a city you should check out. If I get better production values, sponsors, stuff like that, and I can do this either for money or somewhere that's not my bedroom, then maybe I can do that overlay and you guys can enjoy the sitter live. But in order for that to happen, y'all need to like and subscribe and tell your mates and leave me some 5. You know what? Let's fucking, because I didn't do it at the start. So now that we're here, let's do it now. Because I've this is what you got to do for me. All right. homework for the weekend. If you enjoyed this, let's leave some 5-star reviews on iTunes. Let's tell your friends. Let's share the podcast on somewhere on social media. Let's leave comments on the post that I do for this episode. Let's ask some questions that I can answer for next week. Let's do this kind of stuff, guys, because I know I get the numbers. You can't hide from me. I know that there are lots of people listening to this. Get involved, guys. I'm not scary. All right. I know that I've been a little bit angry today, but you forgive me for what's happening to my club. So forgive me. I'm still not gonna go kick someone or tell him that his dad washes elephants. But I am not happy, Jan. But maybe you guys like that. Maybe you enjoy the ramblings. Maybe you find that funny. Maybe you find I don't know. Either way, I want this to be a good time. And man, to do a 45-minute podcast where it's just one guy talking, you got to be impressed. You got to get me a job. Get me a job somewhere, guys. All right. That's the episode. Let me know if I did or didn't explain the Juve situation in enough detail. Go and check out the Adebayor celebration. Go and check out the Peter Van Vossen miss for Rangers versus Celtic. And have a good week. This weekend's football should be fun. Enjoy. Don't bother watching Serie A because they fucking killed the league. Watch some Prem. Watch some Bundesliga. Watch Cumdog play for fucking Central Coast Mariners. Raise your daughters. If you've got daughters, raise them. That's the only thing that I want happening if you can do nothing else. And be cool.